Before I take questions, I just want to make a few points. Um, First off, I want to talk directly to our fans. Um, we understand the disappointment that everybody feels uh, year in, year out. The support that we get from you um, is so vitally important and so appreciated by us and the team in every year. This year in particular, with the restrictions that are going on around the world, but specifically here in Ontario and Toronto, we really wanted to be a beacon of happiness for you. We want to do that for you every year, but certainly this year was even more important for the players. So starting with me and Kyle Dubas, our management staff, our coaching staff, and all of our players, we take responsibility for disappointing you and letting you down and not getting the job done. To our players, I've seen them in recent years very disappointed. Obviously, after first round playoff defeats, I've never quite seen them as despondent as they were the other night. And again, a lot of it is for the reasons that they had built and earned the expectations that were given to them over the course of a lot of work throughout the season, a lot of commitment throughout the season. They had put themselves in a position where we had won the division and we were favorites in a series. That being said, I think that they also recognized how important it was, not just to them and their families, but to all of the Maple Leafs fans that couldn't come to our games that were watching at home. They certainly care a tremendous amount. We didn't get the job done. I've heard some of their comments. They know that. They have deep regrets. But I have no issue with their effort, their commitment, or their desire to win here in Toronto and get the job done. Management, I'll say this, at the end of last year, Kyle Dubas and Sheldon Keefe and myself, along with the other management and our scouting staff, went to work after the season and identified issues in which we needed to improve if we wanted to be a Stanley Cup contending team. I thought that the work was well done. If you go back to March of 2020, prior to the COVID shutdown, the NHL was planning on anywhere between a 4 and a 6% salary cap raise. The cap was going to go up again this year. For all NHL teams, that changed, so the work had to be done. We had to get players, as other teams, we had to find players. We had to find players that fit our needs. I thought that Kyle and Sheldon and our scouting staff did a great job of addressing grit, toughness. We wanted to be a team that not only could play in more physical games, but excel in more physical games. And more importantly, we also wanted to be a team that, through the acquisition of other players, but also through a renewed commitment from our own players and their growth and development, to be a much better defensive team. I thought that they did an excellent job in going out and getting those players, but still we came up short in this year's playoffs. We had an excellent regular season, but ultimately we judge ourselves on the playoffs. So in the coming weeks, Kyle and Sheldon, myself, our management staff, Brandon Pridham, our scouting staff, will go to work about figuring out what we need to do next so that we can get over that hump and have that playoff success. So happy to take questions now.
First up, we'll go to Mark Masters, TSN. Go ahead, Mark.
Brendan, watching that series, from your perspective, why do you think the team came up short?
Well, I think that's one of the questions we have to examine. Look, every year at the end of every season, there are changes, and no doubt there'll be changes this year. If there's a pattern that certainly has developed, it's not through lack of desire of our players. It wasn't through lack of preparation. I felt all season long, like I said earlier, there was not just a comfort in playing physical games, but there was an enthusiasm, and the players excelled in games like that. They had confidence in their defensive abilities. So I thought the preparation was good, but yet, as many of the players have said, there's a killer instinct that is missing that we need to address. whether that's externally or just figuring out a way for our guys to get over that hump. That's something that we have to address, certainly as a team. We had opportunities. Certainly, we were playing some very good hockey after 4 games. We liked where we were. We had 2 opportunities in overtime. Obviously, the first one didn't last very long. The second one, we outshot them 13-2 and weren't able to get the job done. And then again, we came up short in Game 7 again. So these are areas that we have to address, and we have to really be honest with ourselves, and we have to figure out a way that we can support our players and help them get over that hump.
Next up, we'll go to Kevin McGran, Toronto Star. Go ahead, Kevin.
Brendan, all the things that you've done to support the players to get them in a good spot, anything from the preparation they go through, the training, the nutrition, the psychological help they get, the research and development staff, all of it, none of it has worked. How much faith do you have in the system that you've got in place?
None of it has worked. Right. Yeah, none of it has worked yet. And that is certainly, we'll make tweaks, we'll make adjustments. There's always a turnover in players, certainly in every single year. I think that there's definitely growth needed. There's a lot of important growth that happened this year. As I said, those elements I thought that we addressed over the offseason will continue to be important pillars for our team. Defensive play, sticking up for each other, being able to play physically in games where we're tested that way. But I think that those pillars, again, learning how to defend, being committed to defense, playing the full ice are important for them to get over that hump. And then again, it's just a mindset to whether it's somebody coming back and just having another run at that, charging at that door and trying to finally bust it down, or it's the acquisition of new players. I think it's a combination of both, but it's just something that we have to accomplish.
We'll go to Terry Koshan, Toronto Sun. Go ahead, Terry.
Hi, Brendan. So going forward then, you're right. The grit and physicality and experience seemingly was addressed in the offseason. It didn't work. Is it just replacing those parts now with more of the same thing, or do you go any more drastic and take a closer look at your top 4 and the contracts they make, or how do you think this plays itself out here?
Well, I'll say this about our top 4. I think any team in the league would love to have any one of them, but we want them. We like them. We want to keep them here. They're special players. They're all deeply committed to winning here in Toronto. And it's important for us as a management group to continue to develop them. And when I say develop, that's also developing them to play in those situations, those ones that they were just in and that they've found themselves in over the last couple of years and come up short. But it's also to support them and surround them with other players that can help them in that development as well. And we can be better too. Honestly, we have to take it upon ourselves as well. Starting with me, Kyle, Sheldon, our coaching staff, our assistant coaches, our goalie coach, we all have to be better, and we can all be better.
We'll go to Chris Johnston, Sportsnet. Go ahead, Chris.
Yes, Brendan, just because you mentioned that you've entered this sort of flat cap environment because of the pandemic event, do you think that might force you to revisit the 4 forwards thing, just, because the world has kind of changed?
Well, I just addressed that, how I felt about them. I mean, those are very unique players and hard players to get. But I think that it certainly creates a difficult situation for all teams in the NHL. I mean, nobody was prepared for COVID. What I appreciate, or what I appreciated last summer, and we're going to have to do again, is the work that Kyle and Brandon Pridham did to go out and get players. Look, I don't think that our depth was an issue. I thought that our depth actually played really well all season long, and I thought that our depth was a benefit to us in the playoffs. So that wasn't an issue, not having the ability to go out and find players to surround them. We just didn't get over that last hurdle. We didn't get the job done.
Next up, we'll go to Steve Simmons, Toronto Sun. Go ahead, Steve.
You mentioned grit and you talked about physicality. You didn't score until the final minute of Game 7. You didn't score in Game 5 against Columbus. You scored one goal against Boston in Game 7. the year prior to that with the same big four guys. There has to be more to this than strictly physicality when your big guys come up empty year after year after year.
Well, if you heard that, that's not what I was saying, that it's all about physicality and grit, Steve. I think that's just one element that we addressed this year and added to our team, and I think it's an important element to keep. But that's not what I'm saying is the reason why we didn't win. I'll say this, if you just look throughout the history of hockey, there are lots of players who are in the Hall of Fame, lots of players who have their name etched on the Stanley Cup multiple times that went through this same experience early in their careers with their teams. And the teams that were wise enough to hang on to them and to continue to surround them and develop them and just keep trying and getting better and improving benefited eventually. So history will tell you that it can be done. Certainly we're aware, we're aware of how we've come up short. We get it.
I'm not sure where you're getting your history from, but no team that I've come across has lost 5 first rounds in a row and won a Stanley Cup.
Oh, okay. Well, Steve, I think to answer your first question, which was, is this all about grit? That's not what I was saying at all. And you know what? I've also seen when you talk about history, there's a lot of history where you say no team has won with a European captain, and then someone wins with a European captain. No team has won with so many Russians, and then a team wins with Russians. Look, we can talk about, all the things that stand in our way, or we can try and figure out ways to get around them and to get the job done. And that's what I'm here to say, is that as horrible and as devastated as we feel today, that we've let people down, we are not going to stop until we accomplish this. We are going to do this here in Toronto with this group. There'll be changes that will be made. There'll be tweaks along the way, of course. The team will evolve, the people will evolve, but we are going to get this done. And we're not going to focus on the reasons why it can happen. We're going to focus on the ways that it can happen.
Next up, we'll go to Pierre LeBrun with The Athletic. Go ahead, Pierre.
Yeah, Brendan, where do you stand on finding that balance of, not always looking at what you're missing on the roster, but having the players on your current roster play a certain way come playoff time? And, what I mean by that is, the games in the playoffs are played differently. Winnipeg grinded down the Oilers and Montreal grinded your team down, and sort of that lesson with your core that you have. In other words, the answer is not always outside your locker room.
No, I would say that our players certainly had the ability to win those games. I think my own assessment of it is we had opportunities to close out the series with a simple shot on goal and a goal in 2 overtimes, and we didn't do it. A pattern repeated itself in a game 7 where we didn't play our best hockey. So those are the questions that we have to ask ourselves, and those are the things that we have to address, and how do we make them better? And you're right, Pierre. Part of that is external, and part of that is internal, and just getting people to evolve and to grow. And that starts in the off season, and that starts with just improving our habits next year, and hopefully coming back a better and stronger team.
We'll take a few more here. We'll go to David Alter with the Hockey News. Go ahead, David.
Hey, Brendan, you mentioned changes. There's obviously going to be changes to the players. Do you foresee any modifications to the front office staff between now and puck drop next season?
Like I said, I think that Sheldon and Kyle specifically did an excellent job last year in addressing the things that we needed. I felt that Sheldon, as a coach, made excellent adjustments throughout the year. I saw a lot of growth and development with guys like William Nylander, and I saw, adjustments and development even with John Tavares, not to mention some of our players who were playing on the 3rd and 4th line or coming up through our system. I thought that Kyle did an excellent job, but they would be the first ones to tell you, as would I, that there's still something missing and there's still some more that's left to do. So we've hit no finish lines here. Obviously, we're not idiots. We're really just going to continue to work along together. We're going to continue to try and get better. We're going to continue. The difference between winning and losing, as we've seen in that series, is not a tremendous difference. I think that we were, for the most part of that series, we were in control. We weren't able to put them away. And that's the biggest thing we have to address. We found ourselves in the same situation in previous years. We have to figure out a way to have that killer instinct and address that need, whether that's internal or external. That's the thing that we need to do.
Next up, we'll go to Lance Hornby, Toronto Sun. Go ahead, Lance.
Brendan, obviously a lot of people are gloating right now, and other people, other Leaf fans are, saying this is it. I've had enough. Do you think the brand has taken a hit? And you talked earlier about the fans and all that. How do you think that's going to unravel as the summer goes on, and you guys have to live with this?
Well, it's hard for them. I mean, I know it. I understand it, and it's we gave them hope, and then they believed in us. Our players, certainly, like I said, I think our players had earned those expectations. It wasn't something that was given to them. It was earned through hard work. It was earned throughout a regular season in which they met many challenges against other good teams. And then as fans, I think how they feel is they get their heart broken because they do believe in the team, and they sort of throw that belief into the team. So the trust gets shaken at times like this for all organizations that don't meet their expectations. So the trust is wounded, and it's up to us to come back and earn it back again. I will say that this has happened in other cities where championships followed, and it's tough to get through. And we know what our fans, how our fans feel about the team, and we know it's generational. And our players, I think that's part of the reason why our players care so deeply. They want to win it for themselves, but they also want to win it for the decades and decades of fans that have been waiting for a long, long time.
We'll take two more here. We'll go to Greg Strong with the Canadian Press. Go ahead, Greg.
Hey, Brendan. You've spent 7 years with the franchise now. Given the results over that period, do you have a heightened level of concern regarding ownership's confidence in you as team president to get this team in position to go deeper in the playoffs?
When I came here, certainly I was tasked with rebuilding the organization, and obviously bringing a Stanley Cup to Toronto. I haven't accomplished that goal yet. So my focus here is just on accomplishing that. I don't focus on anything else. I'm singular task is just getting the job done. There's a lot of things that go into that. Certainly, there's a lot of work that's gotten us to this point here today. We've made the playoffs 5 years in a row, but 5 times we've failed to get out of the first round. So my job is on getting the job done, and the job that I did, or the job that I took on to come here, was to rebuild this organization and make them a Stanley Cup contender and win a Stanley Cup. And that hasn't happened yet. So I'm going to keep my focus on that until I accomplish it.
And the last one here, we'll go to Matt Larkin with the Hockey News. Go ahead, Matt.
Hi, Brendan. Listening to the players speak today, the word close came up probably 8-10 times. And a lot of the guys were talking about the inability to close out games. As a player, you won 3 rings. You were on 3 teams that did close. And I'm curious, is that something you can cultivate and learn over time, or is it something you have to go and seek outside the organization and bring in?
It can be both. Obviously, when you have an opportunity to add players like that, that's great. But it can certainly be cultivated from within. I didn't win my first Stanley Cup till my 10th year in the NHL. It's something that can develop. As I was saying earlier to Steve Simmons, there are players throughout the history of our game that are elite players that took years and years and years to sort of get that sort of closing ability. The one good thing I would say is once you do it, it becomes sort of a learned experience. Once you do it for the first time, it's something that you don't forget how to do. So it's no guarantee that it's going to happen for your team every year, but I do think it's something that can be developed. And you just can't quit on these guys. You just can't quit on players that care so much, and they do. That's an important part. Look, at the end of the day today, no one's going to feel better from our players speaking, from me speaking, from Kyle, or from Sheldon speaking. It's going to take actions. It's going to be the actions of what we do in this offseason, and it's going to be the actions of what we do on the ice. And then it's going to be the results that we're going to have to get in the playoffs. And until we get those results, we're going to be second guessed. That comes with the territory. We've seen it I've been through it. We've seen other teams and other players go through it. That's just, it comes with the territory of being a professional athlete. We're in a results-based business. And I think until we get those results in the playoffs, none of us are going to feel satisfied with our job.
I see no more hands. Thanks, Brendan.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.